You're not supposed to see what's inside this binder. Most people think a congressional oversight hearing is a boring display of bureaucracy. They're wrong. Yesterday, the United States Department of Justice didn't show up to provide answers. They showed up to wage war. Imagine this. Behind you sit the survivors of the most expansive, most horrific youth exploitation network in American history. They are wearing white, a silent, haunting symbol of the innocence that was stolen from them. They are raising their hands, trying to tell the world that the DOJ hasn't even called them, and the woman leading the nation's legal system, she won't even turn her head. She refuses to acknowledge their existence because in this room, victims are a liability. The main character syndrome is off the charts, but it's not just ego, it's a calculated, high-stakes psychological trap. While the world waited for news on the 38,000 references to the president in criminal files, the AG was focused on her burn book. This isn't a figure of speech. Multiple outlets confirmed she walked into that room with a binder full of individualized political dirt on every committee member who dared to question her. This is
questions really quickly of my colleague, Becca Ballant, if she will answer right or wrong, raping children.
Wrong.
Right or wrong, killing random citizens.
Definitely wrong.
Right or wrong, enriching yourself as the sitting president of the United States.
Definitely wrong.
Okay, thank you, because I probably never would have got that with our witness. Our witness who somehow is a lawyer but does not understand how it works with witnesses. I'm not really sure what law school she went to and what all kind of cases she tried, but typically when you come into a space and somebody's a witness, then they sit there and they answer questions instead of asking questions. And then we also have this objection that we use as lawyers called non-responsive when a witness fails to actually answer the question. But nevertheless, let me address the survivors because that's exactly who they are. They are not victims, they are survivors. Let me say thank you for having more courage and moral clarity in your pinky fingers than the entire Department of Justice. We are currently the laughingstock of the world, partially because of the failed leadership within the DOJ as we see kings and queens falling everywhere around the world. But we don't know the basics of right and wrong in this country because it's not about partisanship. And that's why I applaud Thomas Massie, because he's the only person on the Republican side that has a backbone and knows how to stand up to corruption. But nevertheless, let me keep going. My Democratic colleagues have been attacked this entire committee hearing. They have been lied on. And frankly, the American people weren't looking for that. They were looking for answers about the corruption that they see coming from this administration. In the written testimony of this witness, of this particular witness, she stated that when she took office, she had two main goals. The first was to end the weaponization of justice, and second, to return the department to its core mission. Not only have you lied about both, you've intentionally done the exact opposite. You're spending more taxpayer resources arresting journalists than you are prosecuting pedophiles and creeps. In fact, your boss, the President of the United States, stated that this administration, quote, took the freedom of speech away. And at your direction, DOJ has arrested Don Lemon and Georgia Fort. And I might add that y'all actually had a judge that rejected y'all for trying to arrest Don Lemon before, just like the grand jury rejected y'all as it relates to Senator Kelly, just like a grand jury rejected y'all as it relates to Senator Slotkin, just like the case against Tish James was dismissed and the case against Mr. Comey was dismissed. I completely don't get how it is that you're sitting at the top of DOJ because you don't seem to be good at your job. You're spending more taxpayer resources arresting these journalists. In fact, we know after Georgia Fort and Don Lemon were arrested, we know that there were homes of journalists that were raided. We know that threatened prosecution against students protesting your actions and forced tech companies to remove apps used to track ISIS activities. But let's circle back to you protecting pedophiles and creeps, because I want to talk about the president and his possible involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, I don't know what the president might have done with Jeffrey Epstein, but unlike this administration, I believe that facts matter, so let's talk about the facts. Fact number one, Donald Trump is one of the most named people in the Epstein files. At least 5,000 files contains more than 38,000 references to Trump, his wife, or Mar-a-Lago. Fact number two, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell made young girls available to Trump on multiple occasions. For example, according to this file, Ghislaine Maxwell presented a young girl to President Trump who spent more than 20 minutes apparently flirting with her. Here's another example. This shows notes from FBI investigators that describe Jeffrey Epstein transporting a victim to Mar-a-Lago to meet with President Trump, where he bragged to Trump that, quote, "this is a good one." Now, I'm not saying that the president is a pedophile, but there is a lot of evidence in these files that suggests that he's very close friends with a lot of men who are pedophiles. What's crazy about all of this is just that this is a big cover-up. And this administration is engaged in it. In fact, this administration is complicit. But there are numerous others, like how the DOJ is attempting to obstruct justice in the investigation of the rogue agents who have murdered American citizens, or how the DOJ seized voter data from Fulton County in an attempt to steal the 2026 midterm elections, or how federal agents have Tom Homan on tape accepting a bribe and your agency killed the investigation, or how your agency is ready to give the president a $230 million payday, which is unconstitutional. The Constitution is clear. The president shall not receive any payment except his salary while in office. The fact of the matter is that you will be remembered as one of the worst attorney generals in history. An attorney general who has prioritized obstruction over justice, corruption over the law, fealty to the president over loyalty to the Constitution. And Mr. Chairman, I will yield.
Gentlelady yields. Gentleman from Missouri is recognized. Excuse me, gentleman from Kansas, the Attorney General, former Attorney General, Mr. Schmidt is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and General Bondi, thanks for being here. Did you have anything you wanted to say before we talk?
I do. Thank you, Congressman. Thank you, my friend, for many years. I find it interesting that she didn't even want to try, Congresswoman Crockett, to ask any questions, because she certainly did not condemn her leader, Hakeem Jeffries, for taking money from Jeffrey Epstein after Epstein was convicted. And I will be brief to give you your time, Congressman. This is what she didn't want to talk about. Texas, from Cuba, convicted, homicide, arson, weapon offense.
Convicted.
You know,
so what we
Estrada,
talking about? Convict
Texas,
some of these
convicted,
perpetrators that
homicide.
rape these women that are
Chairman,
sitting
time
behind you
Time
that
belongs
you
to the
refuse
gentleman
to
from
even acknowledge
Kansas.
they are here.
Time belongs to the
Texas.
gentleman from Kansas.
Mr. Chairman, could I have a few seconds
You
back
bet,
to make
you
up
bet.
for the yelling? Thank you. General, did you have anything
Congress.
further to say?
Texas, convicted of homicide. Cecil Joseph, from Dominican Republic. Texas, convicted for kidnapping, rape. Khalid Khan, from Afghanistan. That's why they want to talk about Epstein and not what's happening in their own states.
Thank you, General, and thank you for being here. And this has been quite a spectacle to observe today. I think it's sad. I ran for Congress because I thought we had serious problems in this country. We wanted to try to fix
Realized she was
together.
about
And
to walk
this
into a
performance
buzzsaw
today, not
named
yours,
Jasmine
General, but some of
Crockett.
my colleagues, has
Enter
not shored up my
Congresswoman Jasmine
confidence
Crockett.
that, we are up
She
to the
walks into
task.
the room and immediately
You and I served
realizes
together
the
for 8
game is
years when you
rigged.
were Attorney General
Most
of Florida, and I
politicians
in
love
Kansas.
the sound of their
You
own
served
voice, but
professionally, and I'm
Crockett
glad to be
pulled
able
the
to serve
ultimate
with you in
power
these new
move.
roles,
She
and I'm
refused
Well,
to play.
what you just
She
watched
looked
is a
the
sitting Attorney General
in the eye and
respond
told her
to a
plainly she
detailed,
wouldn't be asking any
evidence-based
questions
presentation
because the
about the
witness had
president's
already made it clear she
38,000
had
references
zero
in a
intention
criminal
of answering
investigation
them. It
by
was a
holding up
PR
mugshots of
masterclass
immigrants
in
from
calling
Crockett
out a
State.
bad faith
That's the
actor.
move. That's
While
all
the
she
AG
had.
sat
So here's
there
what you
ready
need to know that you
weaponize
probably
her
didn't
burn
get from the
against
clip
the next
alone.
person to
First,
speak.
that burn
Crockett
book.
completely
According
cut
to
the
reporting
power
from the
of
Courthouse
AG's
News
pre-written
Service,
script.
the New
The
Republic,
fall off
and
of
multiple other
professional
outlets,
decorum in
she
that
came to
room
this
was
hearing with a
historic.
massive
But Crockett
white
stayed
binder
locked
containing
in,
what Florida
pivoted from
Congressman
witness
Jared
to the only
Moskowitz
people
called
in the
political
room who
dirt,
actually mattered,
individualized
the
pages on
survivors.
each
She didn't
Democratic
just
committee
ignore
member.
the AG,
According to the
she
Associated
dismantled
Press,
the
after
DOJ'S
nearly every
entire
exchange with a
inside of the
Democrat,
facade.
she would ask the
Crockett
next
looked at the
Republican for time to
survivors sitting
respond,
right behind
then
the
flip through her
witness, the
binder
ones
and
the
rattle
AG
off crimes
wouldn't
from
even
that
turn
Democrat's
around to
district
look at,
or
and
personal
gave them the
attacks.
validation
Representative
the
Thomas
government has been
Massey, a
withholding
Republican
for
mind
years.
you,
They
wrote on
told
X
them they
afterward
had
that her
more
staff
courage
gave her
and more
flashcards
clarity
with
in their
individualized
indicators
insults,
than the
but she
entire
couldn't memorize
Department
them,
of Justice.
so you could watch
That's
her
not
shuffle
just a
through them to
soundbite.
find the
That's a
right one
direct
for each
hit on
member.
the
That's a
administration's
Republican describing the
interference
Attorney
strategy.
General.
The
And here's the
irony
part
is
that should
palpable.
genuinely
You had a
unsettle
sitting
you.
Attorney
Representative
General who
Pramila
claims her mission
Jayapal
is
said the
to
binder
end the
contained a
weaponization
printout
of
that appeared to be
justice,
labeled
yet
with
she's
her
sitting
name
there
and
with
search
search
history,
history receipts
seeming to show which specific investigative files Jayapal had accessed in the secure congressional reading room. Let me say that again. The Department of Justice may have been monitoring which documents members of Congress were reading, and then brought that data to the hearing as ammunition. Jayapal said on X that it was totally inappropriate and crossed the line for the Department of Justice to track members as they search the files. Second, those numbers Crockett cited are real. The New York Times, using a custom search tool, found over 5,300 files containing more than 38,000 references to Trump, his wife, Mar-a-Lago, and related terms in the latest release alone. The Federal Bureau of Investigation interview notes Crockett referenced about the financier transporting a victim to Mar-a-Lago and telling Trump, "This is a good one, huh?" Those are actual Federal Bureau of Investigation documents now in the public record. And remember, this is an administration that initially resisted releasing these files until Congress passed the Transparency Act and forced their hand. Third, about her shot at Hakeem Jeffries. What she's referencing is a 2013 email sent by a fundraising consulting firm called Dynamic SRG to the financier on behalf of Jeffries. According to factcheck.org and ABC News, there is zero evidence he ever donated to Jeffries, zero evidence Jeffries knew about the email, and Jeffries has said he never met him. It was a mass email blast from a consulting firm. Compare that to Trump appearing 38,000 times across 5,300 files in a Federal Bureau of Investigation criminal investigation. That's the bad comparison she is banking on, and she knows it won't survive 5 seconds of scrutiny, which is why she pivoted immediately to holding up mugshots. And fourth, and this is the key to understanding what you just watched, her entire strategy at this hearing was deflection, and it was pre-planned. According to Public Broadcasting Service News, the Associated Press, NBC News, and Roll Call, she spent the 5-hour hearing refusing to answer actual questions about the files, calling Democrats' inquiries theatrics, calling the hearing a circus, bragging about the stock market, and personally attacking every Democrat who questioned her. She called Thomas Massie, the Republican who co-authored the Transparency Law, a failed politician with Trump derangement syndrome. She told him he was a hypocrite. This is the Attorney General talking to a member of her own party who is trying to get justice for survivors of harm. Massie responded, "This cover-up spans decades, and you are responsible for this portion of it." So when Crockett says she is spending more taxpayer resources charging journalists than prosecuting offenders and abusers, here's the language you can use when someone asks you what that means. The Department of Justice charged journalists Don Lemon and Georgia Fort for covering a church protest after 2 separate federal judges both found no evidence of criminal behavior. They went to a grand jury anyway. Meanwhile, as Representative Jerry Nadler asked her directly, how many of the financier's accomplices has this Department of Justice charged, she wouldn't answer. She said there are pending investigations but offered no details. 0 new charges. They detained Don Lemon at a Beverly Hills hotel in the middle of the night. They haven't charged a single accomplice. So what does this actually mean for you? It means the Department of Justice, under Pam Bondi's leadership, has made a calculated decision about who deserves prosecution and who deserves protection, and that decision has nothing to do with the law. If you're a journalist covering an immigration protest, they'll send federal agents to your hotel at 2 a.m. If you're a powerful man whose name appears in the files of a convicted criminal, the Department of Justice will hide your name, fail to contact survivors, and expose private materials of victims instead. It's the kind of priority system that would get you fired from a Wendy's, but apparently qualifies you to run federal law enforcement. The Transparency Act, which passed Congress with overwhelming bipartisan support, required the Department of Justice to release all unclassified files by December 19, 2025. They missed the deadline by more than a month. And according to Representative Jamie Raskin, they're still withholding approximately 3 million documents. The Department of Justice released survivors' names and identifying information, including, according to the New York Times, nearly 40 unredacted, compromising photos of young women, while simultaneously blacking out the names of potential accomplices like Les Wexner. Massie caught them red-handed, and they fixed it within 40 minutes. His words, "Within 40 minutes of me catching you red-handed." That's not compliance. That's getting caught. And for what? What is all of this actually for? Is it to protect national security? No. Is it to uphold the rule of law? She literally called the hearing where she was asked about the rule of law a just circus? Is it to protect survivors? They publish the survivors' private files. This is about one thing: protecting the president from the contents of files that mention him 38,000 times. She called Trump the greatest president in American history during the hearing. That's not testimony, that's an audition. And it's the same woman who, as Florida's Attorney General, dropped an investigation into Trump University after receiving a $25,000 donation to her political action committee from the Trump Foundation, a donation that was later deemed improper and paid back with a fine. It's worth noting what Thomas Massie, again a Republican, told reporters during a recess from the hearing. According to Spectrum News, Massie said of her that she didn't answer anything and came ready to talk about the Dow Jones and the NASDAQ, which he called kind of crazy. He added that the next Attorney General could potentially bring charges against the Department of Justice for not complying with the Transparency Act.
Whose name appears in 38,000 references across a criminal
You and I
database.
served together for 8 years when
Suddenly,
you were
the
Attorney General of
DOJ's
Florida and I in
underfunded and
Kansas.
moving
You served
cautiously.
professionally.
They're
I'm glad to
forcing
be able to
tech
serve with
companies
you
to
in these
remove
new roles,
apps
and I'm
used to
Well,
track ISIS
what you just
activities
watched is a
and
sitting
threaten
Attorney
students
General
who protest
respond to
while
a detailed,
simultaneously withholding
evidence-based
3 million
presentation
documents
about
from
the
the
president's
American public.
38,000
This is
references in a
unfiltered
criminal
truth.
investigation
It's a filter,
by holding
a
up
massive
mugshots of immigrants from
taxpayer-funded
Crockett
filter
State.
designed
That's the
to make
move.
sure the
That's all she
receipts
had.
never
So
reach
here's
the
what you need to
people
know
who
that
need
you
the
probably
most.
didn't get from the clip
Department of
alone.
Justice
First,
has
that
officially
burn book.
shifted from being
According
the
to
people's
reporting from the
lawyer to
Courthouse
the
News
president's
Service, The
personal
New
clout
Republic,
protector,
and multiple
and the
other
falloff
outlets,
is being
she came to this hearing
documented
with a
in real
massive
time.
white binder
The mask
containing
didn't
what
just
Florida
slip at the
Congressman
end of
Jared
this hearing.
Moskowitz
It
called
was
political
ripped off
dirt,
in a 40-minute
individualized
window of
pages on
pure,
each Democratic committee
unadulterated
member.
panic.
According to the
This is the
Associated
receipt
Press,
that proves
after
the
nearly
entire
every
game
exchange
is
with a
rigged.
Democrat,
You see,
she would
the
ask the next
Transparency
Republican
Act
for
wasn't a
time to respond,
suggestion. It
then
was a
flip through her
federal
binder
mandate.
and rattle
The
off
DOJ
crimes from
was
that
supposed to
Democrat's
release
district
every
or personal
unclassified
attacks.
file by
Representative
December
Thomas
19th,
Massie,
but
a
they blew
Republican
past
mind
that
you,
deadline
wrote on
like it
X
didn't
afterward that her
exist.
staff
When
gave
they
her
finally
flashcards
started
with
dumping
individualized
documents, they didn't
insults,
just
but she
redact
couldn't
names.
memorize
They
them,
engaged
so you could
in a
watch her
PR
shuffle through them to
masterclass
find the
in
right one for
psychological
each
warfare.
member. That's a
According to the
Republican
New York
describing the
Times,
Attorney
the
General. And here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Representative Pramila Jayapal said the binder contained a printout that appeared to be labeled with her name and search history, seeming to show which specific investigative files Jayapal had accessed in the secure congressional reading room. Let me say that again. The Department of Justice may have been monitoring which documents members of Congress were reading, and then brought that data to the hearing as ammunition. Jayapal said on X that it was totally inappropriate and crossed the line for the Department of Justice to track members as they searched the files. Second, those numbers Crockett cited are real. The New York Times, using a custom search tool, found over 5,300 files containing more than 38,000 references to Trump, his wife, Mar-a-Lago, and related terms in the latest release alone. The Federal Bureau of Investigation interview notes Crockett referenced about the financier transporting a victim to Mar-a-Lago and telling Trump, "This is a good one, huh?" Those are actual Federal Bureau of Investigation documents now in the public record. And remember, this is an administration that initially resisted releasing these files until Congress passed the Transparency Act and forced their hand. Third, about her shot at Hakeem Jeffries. What she's referencing is a 2013